Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're unpacking a really fascinating piece of source material. It's a sermon that basically functions as a highly practical survival guide for anyone trying to navigate our rapidly shifting modern culture. The speaker takes these ancient biblical texts and applies them directly to the chaotic, often deceptive world we're living in right now. So rather than just giving us abstract theology, the source provides this really rigid framework, a literal guidebook for staying faithful to Scripture when it feels like everything around you is constantly changing.
We've got a super clear roadmap for today. We're looking at the modern dilemma, the hold steady blueprint, and then 3 actionable steps: anchor in Scripture, prepare to serve, and remain sober. Let's get right to it.
Section 1. The Modern Dilemma.
So, to fix a problem, we first have to understand the landscape, right? The source sets the stakes incredibly high right out of the gate by drawing on this provocative question from the book of Luke, chapter 18. Right after discussing a parable about a persistent widow demanding justice from an unrighteous judge, the text drops this heavy question: when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on the earth? The speaker points out how sobering this really is. It's not directed at the unrighteous. It's a direct challenge to believers. Basically, in the face of modern evil and massive societal shifts, is anyone actually going to be found holding on to their faith? And to illustrate exactly why faith is under such intense threat, the speaker points us to the Apostle Paul's letter to Timothy. It's basically a rapid-fire diagnosis of societal decay. We're talking about a society filled with people who are lovers of themselves, boastful and proud, abusive, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God. But the most dangerous trait on this list? It's that last one, having a form of godliness but denying its power. According to the sermon, this isn't just ancient history at all. It literally mirrors the cultural depravity and shifting social standards we're witnessing today.
Look at this comparison here because it really highlights the core of our modern dilemma. In the early days of the church, the threat was blatant, right? It was physical. The Roman Empire literally wanted to stamp Christians out. Believers were stoned, beaten, killed. But today, the speaker makes a really compelling argument that today's threat is far more insidious. Instead of outright physical persecution, modern believers are facing these subtle, creeping cultural deceptions and false teachings that just slowly pull them away from their foundation without them even realizing it. Section 2. The Hold Steady Blueprint. So how on earth do we survive this kind of subtle deception? Well, the speaker looks at a letter written by the Apostle Paul from a Roman prison to his protege, Timothy. And the entire blueprint just hinges on this one pivotal forward phrase from 2 Timothy, "But as for you." The speaker makes this awesome linguistic point here. Think about it. Whenever you drop the word "but" into the middle of a conversation, like saying "I love you," but it completely negates whatever came before it. Paul spends all these verses detailing terrible times, false teachers, and depraved minds, and then he firmly draws a line in the sand. He tells his young protege, regardless of what society is doing, but as for you, you will act differently. It's a total game changer that overwrites the cultural chaos. Step 1. Anchor in Scripture. Now, the speaker notes that Paul didn't just tell Timothy to casually read the Bible. He explained exactly how it functions as a tool for survival, citing 2 Timothy 3:16. The source breaks down 4 highly practical uses for Scripture. First up is teaching, which reveals what is ultimately true, acting as the final authority. Second, correcting, which calls out our mistakes and sets a rigid standard when culture starts shifting. Third is restoring, which is amazing because it goes beyond just calling out sin. It actually guides us back to wholeness. And fourth, training, which empowers believers to practically live righteous lives. And here is why this step is so utterly critical if we want to avoid those modern deceptions. The speaker emphasizes that false teachings today, they rarely announce themselves as outright lies. Because let's be honest, believers would reject an obvious heresy a mile away. So these deceptions present themselves as subtle deviations. They sound almost correct. The speaker argues that without consistent, dedicated study, like engaging in Sunday school or Bible study where you can really probe issues side by side with Scripture, we are inevitably going to miss the lies and corrupt the truth we thought we knew. Step 2. Prepare to serve. Okay, once you're anchored, this framework flips from internal defense to external action. Now, the source anticipates some immediate pushback here. The speaker notes that a lot of people will say, "Whoa, I'm not a preacher. Leave that to the people who went to seminary." But the sermon absolutely rejects that passivity. Pointing straight to the Great Commission, to go ye into all the world, The speaker asserts that this command was not just for the 12 disciples or ordained ministers. It is a mandatory call to action for every single everyday believer. Think about what this actually looks like practically. The source outlines the real-world, everyday spaces where this service happens. It's that reluctant workplace you might complain about going to, it's the secular classroom, it's your local neighborhood, or even that family gathering where your church hat comes off. The speaker emphasizes we absolutely have to be ready to serve in these spaces in season and out of season, meaning whether we feel like it, whether life is going our way, or whether everything is just falling to pieces. Step 3, remain sober. This final step addresses how to handle the overwhelming noise of modern media. The speaker again quotes the Apostle Paul, who predicted that a time would come when people would actively refuse to put up with sound doctrine. Instead of truth, people will gather teachers who simply tell them what their itching ears want to hear. The source notes that people will willingly turn their ears away from the truth just to embrace comforting myths, which makes our cultural environment incredibly volatile and confusing. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the speaker ties this ancient warning to a specific, real-world modern event. The sermon calls out the massive media frenzy surrounding false prophecies that the rapture was supposed to happen at least twice in 2025. And the real-world damage was just staggering. According to the source, entire congregations fell prey to this. People actually quit their jobs and cashed out their life investments based on a complete myth. And today, they are just left with completely rattled faith, unsure of what to even believe next. In response to all this chaos, and pointing out that even dark occult practices are now being promoted as casual mainstream entertainment, the speaker issues a strict 3-part mandate for remaining sober. Number 1, do not get caught in the media frenzy. Number 2, do not go along with the hype just to see what happens. And number 3, do not engage in pointless debates that don't glorify God. It's basically a call for ultimate mental and spiritual discipline amidst all the societal noise.
Section 6. Enduring to the end.
So the crucial point here is drawn straight from the book of Matthew. He who endures to the end shall be saved. The speaker reminds us that God already knew the persecution, the lawlessness, the false teachings, and all these modern deceptions would come. Literally none of this is a surprise. The entire purpose of this hold steady framework, anchoring in Scripture, serving others, and remaining sober, is to ensure that believers aren't swept away by deception, but rather endure by faith to secure this overarching promise. We've seen the source's pretty stark diagnosis of our cultural shifts today and the incredibly rigid, historical blueprint it offers to survive them without losing your grounding. The sermon leaves its audience with a clear mandate to look inward. So, I'll leave you with the exact same thought based on this source material. With deceptions becoming more subtle every day and society just growing louder, in a shifting culture, how will you hold steady?